Morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany. My name is Reverend Sam Trumbore. Before we begin, please check to make sure your microphone is muted. The same for your camera, if your image is potentially distracting. Please also be mindful of your speech while on Zoom, as microphones have a way of getting accidentally unmuted. This will minimize any disruption of our service. Thanks so much for your cooperation. This is now a time of transition. From ordinary time to sacred time. Time to check in with your body, to collect your attention, to be present in this moment. Let this moment be separated from yesterday and tomorrow. May this virtual space become a sanctuary for the next hour. Allow your screen to transform into a virtual community hall, to experience images, sounds, and music, songs, poetry, and prose that will lift your heart, broaden your mind, and move you to do justice in the world in the service of building beloved community. May this virtual service be holy time for each of us that joins us together in the celebration of life. Our prelude this morning is Count on Me by Bruno Mars, Philip Morris, and Ari Levine. And our musician is Elena Karpov. And let us light our chalice with the words that you'll see on the screen. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning, we gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community. And let us sing together, Just As Long As I Have Breath. And our song leaders are Chris and Randy.
Our story today is called I Wonder by Annika Harris. Eva and her mom are on a walk in the woods. Eva loves to look for the moon. And when she finds it on this day, she points it out to her mom. And Mom says, "The moon looks so beautiful in the sky. How do you think it follows us, Eva?" Eva thinks about it, but she just can't figure it out. "It's okay to say, I don't know," says Mom. "When we don't know something, we get to wonder about it." "It seems like the moon and the earth are friends," says Eva. "But Mom, how does the moon really stay close to us?" And Mom says there's an invisible force called gravity that pulls all things in the universe together, like the moon and the earth. Eva understands a little better, but then she starts to wonder, "Mom, where does gravity come from?" "I don't know, Eva." "No one knows for sure," says Mom. "That's called a mystery, something for everyone to wonder about together." Eva and Mom continue on their walk, and they come to a shoreline. "How many grains of sand are there in the world, Mom?" "I wonder about that too," says Mom. "No one knows for sure. Trillions and trillions. So many it's hard to imagine, don't you think, Eva?" Eva says, "Yes, trying to imagine is making me dizzy." Eva and her mom walk down another path. Eva is looking for the moon again, and a little orange butterfly appears. Then they see butterflies coming from everywhere. Where did these come from, Mom? These butterflies have been flying around for a while, probably days. But they hatched from a chrysalis made by caterpillars that came from an egg, and those eggs came from other butterflies. Things are always changing, Eva. What else changes? Well, says Eva, clouds change, and tadpoles change, and I'm changing too. Then Eva wonders, Mom, what was there before the butterflies and the tadpoles and the clouds and everything? I don't know, says Mom. It's another mystery. What would you guess? Eva smiles and says, I don't know, but I wonder if there were feelings. I wonder if there has always been love. As they walk home, they see the moon again, glowing brightly over the top of their house. Let's go inside, says Eva, and look for the moon through the window. And they did. And that's the end of the story. As Unitarian Universalists, we know that we live with some big mysteries. And when we come upon one, we are given a little gift. For us, every mystery is something that calls us to wonder about together.
Well, thank you, Leah, for that story about wondering and love. Delightful story. Love is very important to Unitarian Universalists. The belief in a loving God who loved humanity so much that God couldn't send anyone to hell was the beginning of Universalism. The belief in a God who recognized our potential for goodness in humanity, that God would lift us up, excluding none, is a foundation of Unitarianism. Though today we do not agree on the nature or existence of God, love is the unifying principle that holds Unitarian Universalism together. That doesn't mean love is easy. Far from it. Today we consider how commitment helps us in the challenges of bringing love to life. I have 3 readings for you this morning. The first one is from Loving Each Other by Leo Bescalia. And they lived happily ever after. So goes the eternal myth of loving each other. The fantasy that being in love and forming relationships based on love will solve all of life's problems and provide us with deserved instant and lasting happiness. The myth is delightful. The reality is too often fierce. But we love to believe in fairy tales. And they lived happily ever after, says Joshua Liebman, is one of the most tragic sentences in literature. It is tragic because it tells a falsehood about life and has led countless generations of people to expect something from human existence which is not possible on this fragile, failing, imperfect earth. Learning to live with and love others requires skills as delicate and studied as those of a surgeon, a master builder, and the gourmet cook, none of whom would dream of practicing each profession without first acquiring the necessary knowledge. Still, we fragile, ill-equipped humans plow ahead, forming friendships, marrying, raising families with few or no actual resources at hand to meet the overwhelming demands. It is no surprise, therefore, that relationships which often begin with joyous, wide-eyed naivete too often end in disillusionment, bitterness, and despair. My second reading is from Conscious Loving, The Journey of Co-Commitment by Gay and Kathleen Hendricks. Love is a powerful force. If we do not know how to handle its power, we slip very quickly into its powerfully painful distortions, such as conflict and codependence. But know this, it is resistance to love that causes the problems. There is nothing wrong with love. Love is a force that focuses its light on the deepest shadowy parts of ourselves. It brings to the surface the parts of ourselves that we most desperately try to keep hidden. When these parts of ourselves emerge, we often retreat, blaming love and those who have loved us. And finally, words by Valerie Kaur, who spoke Wednesday night, offering the Willard Kiplinger lecture on ethics in American society. The title of her talk was The Ethic of Revolutionary Love. Revolutionary love is the call of our times. In an era of enormous rage, we must resist dangerous policies and acts of hate that threaten our most vulnerable communities. But resistance alone will not deliver us. We will burn out or even start to mirror the rage we are resisting. So we are staging a cultural intervention to birth a new future. Our mission to equip our movements and communities with tools to labor in love. Love for others, love for our opponents, and love for ourselves. When we pour love in these three directions, then love becomes revolutionary. Here end the readings. And I have this meditation from Joan Javier Deval. Meditation for challenging times. Let us turn inward to receive these words. Holy mystery, silent presence, uncertain bearer of the weight of it all. In these quiet moments, we listen. We listen for the maybe still breathing, perhaps still whispering, faintest sign of the universal good. We listen between the cacophony of distractions pulling us toward untruth and falsehood. We listen amidst the shrill cries of desperation of, we've had enough. Of when will they stop killing my people? Of how much more will the waters rise? Or when will it be safe to return to my home? Of how much longer can I hang on? We listen and wait. Through the tumult of these days, we seek assurance. We seek the fulfillment of a promise made to ourselves, a promise made to those who have been stretched to call neighbor, a promise unwritten and enshrined. and yet unfulfilled. Help us, abiding mystery, to hang on, to hold on when all is in question, when all is in doubt. Help us to stay firm to our own commitments, to our own promises. Lead us back into connection, back into the bonds of humanity that help us to know each other as beloved. May we continue listening. May we keep watch. May we beckon love and justice and mercy with our own whispers, with our shouts, with our cries, until all know themselves part of the circle of love. Let us take these words and our own thoughts, reflections, and prayers into a time of silent meditation. We are answering the call of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim, we are answering the call of love. You probably remember the original words of hymn 1014 in our teal hymnal, Standing on the Side of Love, and the ableist controversy about the reference to standing. The author of the lyric, the Reverend Jason Sheldon, wrote those words inspired by UUA President Bill Sinkford in 2004. Shelton was meeting with Sinkford at the UUA headquarters when word came that President George W. Bush had called for a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. Sinkford took a call to tell a reporter, "We are standing on the side of love." Sheldon started scribbling notes and lyrics.
What?
The song seemed to jump out of the walls of 25 Beacon Street in one of the most powerful, sacred, creative moments I've ever experienced, Shelton said. The recent change in lyrics to make them more inclusive doesn't diminish the song's power to communicate our Unitarian Universalist commitment to love. Our hymnal is full of beautiful songs extolling the value and beauty of love. We may not be able to agree about the nature or absence of divinity in the universe, but we do come together with an embrace of the importance of love as a core value of Unitarian Universalism. We are hardly alone in appreciating the value of love. The great writers and poets lift our spirits with words like, "Till I loved, I never lived," by Emily Dickinson. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. And think not you can direct the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course, by Khalil Gibran. Hafiz extols, the heart is a 1,000-stringed instrument that can only be tuned with love. And this by now the suddenly controversial Dr. Seuss. You know you're in love when you don't want to fall asleep because reality is finally better than your dreams. Enthralled as humanity is with love, be it romantic or familial or friendship or of the saints or the holy or the divine, sustaining such a relationship over time is not easy. As Leo Bescalia puts it so well, there isn't a happily ever after for any loving relationship. Loving is subject to the cruel slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as Hamlet lamented. And in the challenges, decisions must be made to act or not to act. Close and intimate relationships are the ones that torment us the most. In the hormone-spiked bloom of fresh love, our beloved glows on the street like a neon raspberry. Our beloved can do no wrong, or if they make a misstep, it can be easily ignored compared to the enchanted glow of their radiance. What a cruel, cruel twist of fate, that the vision deluding mist must eventually dissipate, and the reality of the other person is exposed in full sunlight. Where, oh, where were those warts and blemishes when I first set eyes upon you, laments the disillusioned lover. Another great source of stress for those who marry are in-laws. Most of us don't do a complete inventory of who we are agreeing to be in relationship with when we marry. And those relations usually don't get a say in the family they are going to have to join as part of a marriage. There are likely to be unpleasant relations we'd rather avoid. And they will be there to celebrate weddings, baptisms, funerals, Thanksgiving, and Christmas for the rest of our lives. Although we might get along with our neighbor, draw the circle wide enough in your neighborhood and you are likely to experience conflict. Neighborhood and condominium associations inspire some of the most vicious and hostile behavior you'll ever experience. I would like to challenge Jesus to be the president of a condo board that needs to raise the fees to pay for capital improvements. Love your neighbor? Yeah, right. And let us not look back with rosy-colored glasses on the civil rights era of the 1960s. We tend to forget how many losses there were. Every victory was hard fought and fragile. Waves of hate had to be encountered at every step. People were injured and died, black and white, but of course, many, many more black, indigenous, and people of color over the last 400 years. I continue to be amazed at the depth of resistance that blocks and tries to reverse any gains in undoing white supremacy. What discouraged me most is watching myself turn away from love. A surge of anger can easily harden my heart. One of the reasons I meditate every day and practice loving kindness meditation is to catch anger before it overwhelms my self-reflective mindfulness. Knowing that anger is present can allow me to choose my response. Getting flooded with anger can interfere with choosing wiser ways to respond in the moment. Intense desire can also cloud my mind and stimulate unwise, selfish behavior that can also turn away from love. The problems with lack of love in the world are not all out there someplace. They are in here too. What I've found can make a difference is making a commitment to love. Where we put our energy consistently and reliably is what will move us and transform us. Famously, Hamlet wasn't much into commitment and spent most of his time in the play waffling back and forth. Lack of commitment in relationships can easily sabotage them. What gets in the way most often are strong emotions that trigger old patterns of relationship behavior. The parents or adults around us while we were growing up modeled how to behave in relationships, programming our default settings. Unfortunately, strong emotions can disengage the frontal cortex and activate less evolved, more reactive brain centers. We then, in a sense, switch on relationship autopilot and let go of the controls. By autopilot, I mean the habitual programmed response we observed and practiced as children. The challenge of commitment to love is to turn off relationship autopilot, take the controls, and develop wiser and healthier relationship skills. What helps me move out of reactivity and reactivate my cerebral cortex is being curious. The Buddha highly praised investigation of the present moment as one of the 7 key factors that lead toward enlightenment. Getting curious opens the opportunity to learn and grow. What are the fears and worries that are operating in each of us? What do each of us fear losing in this situation? What is being protected from harm? One important question to investigate is if there is an unmet need that is driving the situation on either side. Marshall Rosenberg wisely identified needs as the drivers of human behavior. In their elemental form, needs are basic and universal human drives for meaning and value. Everyone needs safety. Everyone needs sustenance, shelter, and rest. Everyone needs autonomy, connection, and care. Whether a need can be met or not, they are universally appreciated human values. When I name and appreciate a need that is present for another person in the present moment, that itself is an act of love. I am saying, I see you, and I appreciate you in this moment whether I can help you meet that need or not. A commitment to love is a commitment to move toward compassion, toward compassionate communication. All this takes effort. It takes effort to resist the temptation to go on relationship autopilot. It takes effort to move from reactivity to curiosity. It takes effortful attention to pursue the needs another person might be experiencing. That might mean bringing into question one's own beliefs, assumptions, and interpretations. That might mean doubting one's ability to observe and interpret reality. This inner process might be quite unsettling to question oneself for another's benefit. What I'm suggesting right now takes a lot of faith in love, in life, and in humanity itself. Right here is the biggest barrier to commitment to love: a lack of faith. I doubt I need to persuade anyone how wretched human beings can be toward each other. Every day, people harm each other. Some go further and kill each other. Not only are people regularly harming each other, they harm and kill other species of life too, to the point of extinction. Regularly, as part of my Buddhist practice, I contemplate the three poisons that affect all life forms: craving, hatred, and ignorance. These poisons make humanity incredibly destructive. Coming into consciousness in separate bodies that have individual needs that often don't get met profoundly interferes with our genetically programmed natural inclination toward love. Those three poisons are also genetically programmed into us to force us to attend to the needs of our bodies. The Buddha wisely recognized the widespread and relentless suffering that these evolved methods of survival have caused. Not just humanity, but all life forms as well. Witnessing the relentless suffering of humanity can be quite discouraging. Current incarnations tormenting us include the coming catastrophes of climate change, technologically enabled Big Brother surveillance, Second Amendment civilian militarization with powerful weapons, drone warfare, hostility to immigrants, desertification, weather extremes, and on and on. We humans are threatening the ability of our planet to sustain life. I can easily get rather negative about my fellow bipeds, rather nihilistic even. Contemplating the future today can majorly interfere with one's willingness to make a commitment to love, especially to love thy neighbor who is being a jerk. An example of this kind of discouragement happened, at least for me, I expect for many of you too, after the election in November. The level of polarization between those who accepted the results of the election and those who believed the election was stolen reminded me of the vitriol following the 2000 election. It seems like the division between reds and blues has never been as deep as this before, stoked by the losing candidate who will not concede. On Thursday night, the group I've mentioned before, Braver Angels, had a Zoom debate on this issue. Braver Angels exists to connect Americans in dialogue over their differences. They asked the question, should the outcome of the 2020 election be up for debate. There was internal division within Braver Angels if they should even be debating this question, but the majority held that if they were going to be true to their mission, they'd need to take on extremely polarizing issues like this one. I was impressed by the quality of the presentations on both sides and the respectful way the debate was structured. The debate went back and forth from the pro side speaking for 4 minutes with Q&A, followed by 4 minutes for the con side with Q&A, back and forth. All questions were addressed to the chair and answered to the chair to lower the emotional temperature of the exchange. I heard some statements and proposals from the red presenters that interested me and surprised me. What quickly became clear, at least to me, was the value of a red side proposal for further investigation of both voter fraud and voter suppression by, say, a presidential commission. Such a commission could respond to the need for increasing and restoring confidence in our voting systems. This could be a way to rebuild mutual trust in elections as a level playing field. Little is more important in our democracy than confidence in our voting methods and systems. And we here in Albany are no stranger to the idea that there can be corruption in that process, as I heard one red speaker from LA County alleging to have witnessed. Having listened to a respectful, reasoned debate between opposing political views, I felt much more willing to be in relationship with those a couple of hours ago I probably would have wanted to reject without hearing what they had to say. Now maybe I could even care about them as my neighbor. As Valerie Kaur puts it, we've got to reclaim love, not as some abstract ethic or as a rush of good feeling, not as a form of sentimentality or a practice of even civility. No, it is time to reclaim love for our era as a form of sweet labor, a choice we make again and again. Answering the call of love is not just being willing to be in relationship with those who are like us. Love demands more of us. Love brings to the surface the parts of ourselves that we most desperately try to keep hidden. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound. Corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we've found. A bright new day can dawn when we make and keep a commitment to love. A commitment to love can help us grow through the limitations we've imposed on love in the search for self-protection. We fool ourselves if we believe love can be contained, managed, or controlled. The power of love is why we exist at all. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. So be it.
Good morning. I'm Sigrun Newell, and I am the service associate today. An important way we celebrate life each Sunday is by offering an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution via one of the options shown on the next slide. You can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute, or you can send a text to the number shown on the screen. The examples on this slide show you how to label your text to indicate the amount and the purpose or intent of your gift. If you wanted to send to the collection plate, you say text 20. To send money to your pledge, you say text 100 pledge. We must now say goodbye to our Facebook friends. Consider joining us on Zoom next time by visiting albanyuu.org. Our offertory music this morning is We Are Family by Bernard Edwards and Nile Rodgers.
Hi, my name is Heidi Newberg, and I'm a current member of your Board of Trustees. I remember when I first joined a UU church. It was my first church. It seemed very reasonable to donate a few $100s per year in exchange for one lecture a week. That was what I thought it meant to join a church. It wasn't that I couldn't afford more. My husband, Lee, had a tremendous commitment to charity, and we gave more than that to other organizations. The church just didn't seem to be as worthy a charity as those that were building affordable housing, feeding the hungry, safeguarding women's health, or freeing international prisoners. Lee and I have now been UUs for more than 2 decades, and the connection we have with the church goes far beyond the Sunday morning service. Though I have learned a few things on Sunday that I didn't learn anywhere else, like why someone might want to change their gender or how to blow a shofar. All 4 of our kids benefited from years of religious education and from friendships with UUs of all ages. When I had a major operation, someone dropped off a wonderful chicken casserole that fed the family for it seems like 3 days. When my stepfather died relatively suddenly, Sam and other church members stepped in to organize the memorial service in Community Hall. But most importantly, my family is part of a beloved community that not only cares about and supports each other, but also strives to make a positive difference in our community. Even when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, this congregation worked to stay connected and find innovative ways to address the spiritual needs of our members. We all have different gifts and assets, and we support each other and our community in different ways. The pledge that Lee and I make today, or actually yesterday, so we've done our part for the canvas, is not the accumulation of 3% increases over our initial newcomer pledge. Over the years, we made a stronger financial commitment as the church membership took on more meaning in our lives. Some years, thankfully this year, we can afford to increase our pledge beyond what was requested, and some years, as it turns out the last few, keeping the same pledge as the previous year is all we were comfortable doing. The hope is that on average, the sum of our pledges increases to cover our continually increasing cost of operations. Maybe the sudden realization by one family that UU should occupy a larger part of their charitable giving will make up for the job loss or the cost of sending a child to college that is facing another family. I hope Albany UU is a part of your support structure and that it enriches your life the way it has mine. I hope that you will make it your #1 choice for charitable giving, as my husband and I have, because if you want to change the world, the most important place to start is right here with your family and your local community.
This is the time set aside in our service for sharing significant personal milestones in our lives. There are 3 ways to share a joy or sorrow. The first option is to type your joy or sorrow in the chat window. Please put the words "read aloud" at the beginning of your message if you would like us to do that. Please also consider connecting privately with one of the PCAs on duty today, which is myself and Randy Rosette. The second option is to click the blue raise hand symbol in the participant window. Our technician will unmute you and invite you to speak your joy or sorrow. And the third option is to submit a joy or sorrow using our website by noon on Friday prior to service. We'll begin by reading those that were submitted this past week. Then we'll hear the spoken joys and sorrows, followed by the chat entries to be read aloud.
Right. I have no submitted joys or sorrows from the website, and I'm scanning for hands and haven't seen any just yet, but we'll give it a few minutes.
Okay.
Here we go. We will go to Phil Rich.
Good morning, everyone. I'm afraid I have another sorrow. My uncle Mike Rich is in hospice, and he's in his early 90s. He's a successful entrepreneur, and he followed the precepts of his religion, and he was a decent uncle, and seems that trouble comes in bunches. At any rate, I wish to say that I wish his family the very best, and thank you.
All right, thank you, Phil. Moving on, Randy, go ahead.
Hi all.
Unmute.
For those of you who have known my parents for a while, we had a very bittersweet Friday evening when we assisted them to sell their car. So my parents no longer drive, which is, a big step, losing your independence. But they knew it was the right thing to do. We're here to support them, and it was a good evening. Thanks, Chris.
At the moment, I have no other joys and sorrows.
Okay. We'll go to the read alouds. From Shannon Simpson. My dad was able to go home yesterday and is recovering well. Good news. From Jay Holly. I got my first dose of the Pfizer vaccine yesterday, thanks to Mary Applegate for the tip to volunteer to help with the Albany vaccinations. Volunteers can ask for leftover vaccinations at the end of the event. And from Valerie Palmadon, my joy is that my 80-year-old parents and 80-plus-year-old aunt and uncle have all received their second COVID vaccines this past week. Still trying to convince my 77-year-old mother-in-law with cancer to get hers. I think that is all. So for the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken, let us hold all that we've heard and felt in our hearts.
And this prayer of affirmation comes from Sheldon Bennett. Let us again turn inward for these words. O deep mystery of our lives, voice in our hearts and light in our minds. In the joyful freedom of our fellowship, we are here together as adventurers, called forth in spirit, moving, yearning, questing, pushing the limits of our lives outwards to what is more loving and just, more beautiful and true. We are struck in awe before the great mystery of the cosmos. We are powerfully moved by a deep connection for our world and our care for one another. In the Spirit moves in us as a free religious community joined in a common covenant of aspiration, commitment, and hope. May ours be a faith that is more than just beautiful words and high ideals. May ours be a faith of vitality and commitment, a faith that burns in our hearts and blazes in our minds. May ours be a faith that shines into the world as the light of deeds and the witness of actions. O source and spirit of our lives, may we respond boldly to your call to adventure, for justice, for love, and for joy. Amen. And a beautiful closing song for us to celebrate is There Is More Love Somewhere. And Elena Karpov will lead us.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
The benediction is adapted from Carter Hayward, Love is a Choice. We are not automatic lovers of self, others, world, or God. Love does not just happen. We are not love machines, puppets on the strings of a deity called love. Love is a choice, not simply or necessarily a rational choice, but rather a willingness to be present to others without pretense or guile. Love is a willingness to participate with others in the healing of a broken world and broken lives. Love is a choice to experience life as a member of the human family, a partner in the dance of life. And now we give our thanks to the people who participated today. Ushers, Kristen Abbas, Amy Jameson, Chuck Manning, Jean Poppy. Pastoral Care Associates are Sharon Babila and Randy Rosette. Barb Manning is the welcomer. I'm the Service Associate, Sigrun Newell. Musicians, Elena Karpov, Chris Jensen, and Randy Rosette. Office support was Tammy Hathaway and Elizabeth Baldus. Technical support, Chris Jensen.